What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here. And I am so glad you're here. You know that to be true. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and I am so pleased to be your host tonight. You're listening to Who Do You Think You Are, a podcast dedicated to you, to your authenticity, to your voice. Here we learn how to have the highest regard for ourselves, how to live from a place of genuine self-respect and self-love, and how to make ourselves a priority in our own lives. Meet me here each week for curated tips and strategies designed to help you drop your psychological masks, connect with your truest and unlimited essence, and simply live life more easily. Why? Because we know that when we approach life in this way, we naturally and effortlessly and organically have more room, more generosity, and more love for one another. And friends, listeners, wide receivers, when have we needed love more than this very day, this very minute? I'm so glad we're together. We're going to be spending the next hour of this Sunday evening together. And I invite you to join the chat if you happen to have access to the chat. Comment, ask questions, present your point of view. Any point of view, any and all are welcome on the show. And as always, I want to remind you that, please, if you are struggling with something, if you're experiencing something very pressing, very overwhelming, and you're having difficulty finding your way through, please, please don't go it alone. There is help available, good help out there. Get yourself some, talk to someone, let someone help you sort through things, let someone support you. If you have difficulty getting a referral, please let me know. Contact me by email. Just go to catherine@catherineduca.com. Let me know what you're looking for, and I'll do what I can to help you with a good referral. All right? Don't go it alone. And if you enjoy tonight's content, and if you've been listening, please drop a comment, like, share down below. It means a lot to the algorithm, and you know how it goes. If the algorithm is happy, then they show the material. They let the show go out to more and more people. So like, share, comment, if you would. All right, great. So tonight we are talking about another aspect of difficult conversations, which we started a couple of weeks ago. By the way, have you had a difficult conversation in the past couple of weeks? Have you found yourself in the space of having to have a talk that made you anxious? If so, what did you do? If you've been listening, did you apply any of the things we've been talking about? If you did, great, let me know. If you didn't, that's okay. There's always another opportunity. There's something about difficult conversations, right? There's never a shortage. I always say, where two or more are gathered, there will be conflict. It's inevitable, and there will be the necessity for tough conversations. But tough conversations, when you sort of turn them inside out, are really honest conversations. And they can be very meaningful. And they can really, they have the potential to bring us closer, because oftentimes when we allow ourselves to go deeper, we can feel a certain degree of vulnerability. And while that may be initially uncomfortable, I think the more you allow yourself to feel vulnerable, I think the more you'll notice you have access to your own depth and breadth. And when we share that with another person in an atmosphere of mutual respect and mutual understanding, it goes a long way. It goes a long way. You know, we often talk about be the peace you want to see. Well, that's a beautiful accolade, of course. But how do we be the peace we want to see? Well, I think one way in which we do that is we have, wherever possible, peaceful interactions. Now, peaceful interactions can be very insightful interactions. They can be very valuable. They can be enlightening. They can be an exchange of one person's depth with another person's depth. So, what may seem initially as something to avoid or have a lot of trepidation about, I think the more we have these kinds of conversations, the more we come to understand that beneath the idea of a difficult conversation is really an invitation for more honesty, more closeness, more genuineness, and more authenticity. And isn't that what we always talk about here on Who Do You Think You Are? And if you're just joining me tonight for the very first time, you might be wondering about the title. What does it mean? Who do you think you are? Well, it's not who do you think you are, you big shot. Nothing of the sort. It's who do you think you are? Because who we think we are is really just a fraction, and a tiny one at that, of who we really are. You know, we walk around with these masks, these psychological masks. This is human nature, certainly in Western culture anyway. We walk around with layers of protection, layers of defense mechanisms, layers of armor. In psychology, this is called character armor, character referring to our personality. So we have layers of personality armor, um, known as our persona. You know, it's the image we project to the world. We all do it. There isn't anyone who doesn't. The issue is the the bigger the gap between what we present to the world and who we really are deep down, the wider that gulf, the more the more difficult life can be. Why? Because these masks are like masks. They're like a facade. They are a facade. They're a masquerade of sorts. We're masquerading as the person we think we need to be in order to be accepted. And, you know, if we do that long enough, and many of us do, we develop these masks in childhood and we wear them and try to perfect them throughout our entire adult lives. The more we do that, the more estranged we are from our truest selves, from our deepest nature. Isn't that interesting? It's as though we are two people. I mean this in the loosest sense, not in the strictest psychological sense, but we're two people in that we project one way to the world, and then we go home and we kind of, you know, we undress psychologically, we take our masks off, and we can say, ah, I can finally be me. And while that's great to be you, you 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 wonder, well, are you you? Do you only feel you can be you in isolation, only by yourself, with yourself? Does the idea of being who you really are, showing who you really are to someone else, to the world, does that scare you? Well, if it does, you're not alone. And that just means that you're probably holding some kind of judgment on yourself. You're probably being critical of who you believe yourself to be. Oh, I'm not that intelligent. I'm not that savvy. I'm not that worldly. I'm not that pretty. You know, I don't, my hips are not, the right kind of hips. I have all of these disqualifiers that keep me from really believing that I am lovable. You see? So we collect all of these undesirable aspects of ourselves, our true selves, what we deem unlovable, unacceptable. We collect them and we kind of lock them up someplace deep within. I call it, our psychological vault. We suppress that part of ourselves. We disown that part of ourselves, and we lock that part up, and we project this other image, which sometimes is quite far afield from who we really are. So, on this show, I invite us all to take a look at our deepest selves, kind of warm up to it, if you will, and let's see if we can't be in acceptance of our own selves. Because here's the interesting phenomenon that we do through the concept of projection. We take those unlovable, those perceived unlovable parts of ourselves, and yes, we bury them. But at the same time, we sort of take the remnants of them and toss them onto other people, project them onto other people. In other words, we almost accuse people of being the way we think we are deep down, but don't want to acknowledge. So we don't recognize it within ourselves. We spot it, usually glaringly and in neon lights in other people. Oh, can you believe he did that? Can you believe she said that? Oh, I would never do that. I would never conduct myself like that. You know, all the while, if we're honest with ourselves, we might have a little piece of what we're complaining about in another person. You see? So the more self aware we become, the less estranged we are from our deepest selves, the more, and here's the word of the week, the more integrated we become. The pumpernickel and the rye kind of, gets together, and we integrate these disparate parts of ourselves into the person I call Catherine. If we're talking about myself, I have this quality and that quality and the other quality that I'm not crazy about. I might even be a bit ashamed of those qualities. But if I understand where they stemmed from, why they exist in my being, I can then have compassion for myself. Oh, I adopted this mask in childhood when I was 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 to protect myself from something unpleasant, uncomfortable, or painful. And then that defense mechanism just got locked in. I simply got taller, but I still operate from that place of self shame, self loathing, and always wanting to edit that part of myself. You see? So keep this in mind as we go through tonight's conversation. And indeed, as you go through your life, keep this in mind. So, this is why the title, Who We Think We Are, is just a fraction, because the truth is, in the wholeness of our being, we are magnificent. We are created in the image and likeness of the divine, each of us. Now, you may say, well, I know some pretty dark people. I know some people, or I've heard of some people on the news, what have you. They seem pretty dark. How could they be made in the image and likeness of the divine? Well, I submit to you that each of us is made in the image of the divine, but we can be disconnected, and we can be a little disconnected, a lot disconnected, grossly disconnected from our inner light and from the infinite. And when we are very disconnected, we are in darkness. And we bring that darkness wherever we go, because each of us is a point of consciousness. Each of us. And each of us is an agent of change. Well, we're an agent of something. We're either bringing positivity and compassion into the world, or we're bringing our darkness into the world, right? And I think you would agree that it behooves us to try to connect with Source as much as possible. We are spiritual beings, of course, having a human experience. And as such, we have this thing called personality that is fraught with all the things I mentioned before. So the idea here on this show, and I think on this beautiful station, New Thought Media Network, is to try to clear away the impediments, the debris, the obstacles to our connection to Source, so that our personality can be better aligned with our deepest inner knowing and our connection to the infinite. So, all that by way of background to tonight's conversation. I said each of us is a data point. Each of us can bring light or darkness. Well, in the human realm, we have these things called tough conversations, because we're in an infinite matrix of relationships. You know, we're related to so many things and people and circumstances and all these degrees of separation. And it's inevitable that we will not see exactly eye to eye with someone, even someone whom we love. So this brings us to the exact topic tonight, which is an aspect of difficult conversations, and that is criticism. Criticism. Got criticism in your life? Are you in a relationship, any sort of relationship, where you feel criticized from time to time? Or are you someone who, if you're honest with yourself, notice you can be critical of others? Or perhaps you've gotten um, feedback from another or others that you can be critical yourself. So, regardless, whether it's coming or going, you know, inbound or outbound, criticism is a part of our discourse. It's a part of how we speak to each other. And I got to tell you, of course, we all know this, it is one of the most uncomfortable, unpleasant aspects of relational dynamics. We all know what criticism feels like when we're on the receiving end, but let me just share with you the definition. According to the dictionary, the criticism is the act of passing judgment as to the merits of anything. The act of passing judgment as to the merits of anything. So, stands to reason. It kind of makes your shoulders go up, and it makes you defensive to be on the receiving end of criticism. But what I want to discuss tonight is what is hidden underneath just about every criticism or complaint you might encounter. Because beneath every criticism, behind every complaint, is a plea of sorts. there is a desire or a longing or a need of some kind that exists beneath the criticism, you know? Now, if we can learn to hear, and this is the whole point of tonight's conversation, if we can learn how to hear both ourselves and another person on this deeper frequency and respond to that, if it's the deeper desire in ourself, if we can speak from that place, or if we recognize the deeper desire in another and speak to that place within them, we will have a much more meaningful interaction. A much more meaningful interaction. You see, we are not trained or taught how to do that. Most of the time, we try to solve conflicts at the level of the conflict itself. And I think it was Einstein who said, we really can't solve a problem at the level on which the problem manifests. You have to go to the root cause of the problem. Otherwise, you're just sort of what I call rearranging the furniture on that top level. So the top level sounds like, uh, you know, you 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 always, you're always late. Let's just take that one for example. You're always late. If you say to someone you're always late and they say, "No, I'm not." And you say, "Yes, you are. Remember this time and this time and this time." And you bring in all the times and you bring in the kitchen sink and you throw everything in there. Are you likely to bring out the better in that person? Of course not. Are you likely to um, have them become receptive to what you're trying to say to them? Very doubtful. So you want to hear what they're communicating beneath the statement of, "You're always late." Another popular one, I mean, I hear this every day from my clients, is they'll tell me a story and they find themselves saying to their person, "You never listen. You never listen to me." And the other person might say, "What do you mean I never listen? I'm listening to you right now. Go on. Go on." Or, "Well, you're always telling me this, or you're always telling me that," or you drone on and on and on. And so what happens is we're we're talking top level. We start out there, and then one person counterattacks and the other person gets defensive and cross attacks, and then the other person escalates beyond that. And what do you think you have within a minute or two? You have a conversation that naturally deteriorates, and the needle on something more constructive simply does not move. And then you have that in the tank. And then maybe you have another difficult conversation with that person and you level another criticism. And then the whole thing happens again. And this is the way in which relationships deteriorate sliver by sliver. We it blows over. You might not pay it any mind, but actually it has eroded some of the goodwill between you. And it has actually established an account, if you will, like a bank account, an account of past criticisms. Okay? So you have an account of goodwill that perhaps is being drained, and you have an account of ill will, defensiveness that is gaining interest. And before you know it, the relationship can reach a threshold where things are really problematic. So when we can stop reacting and be more responsive, we can really go a long way. Last week, if you were with me, I mentioned the difference between reacting in a conversation and responding. Very quickly, I'll go over that because it's really um, it's really basic to good constructive communication. Reacting is quite automatic. It's quite knee jerk. It's something we do without even stopping to think. Somebody says something to us and boom, we just react. It's a reflex. Responding, on the other hand, is a more measured way of responding to the person. It's a more reasoned response, and it is a more nuanced response. It's not automatic. It's not black or white. It's not all or nothing. So what we want to do overall is kind of move over from being a person who is reactive, because where there is reactivity, there is defensiveness, to a person who is more responsive and curious, right? So let's just take a breath on that. Beneath every complaint and criticism is a call for something deeper, a call for a deeper understanding. So if we can train our inner ear to hear that and come from that place within ourselves or respond to that in a different person, we're just going to have better, more constructive, more productive conversations. Okay. So I notice we have someone in the chat. I'll just say hello, and then we'll go to a break. And when we come back, we'll talk about some strategies and tools that you can use to bring your defensiveness down and increase your non-defensive, more responsive way of handling criticism. So, Tony, happy end of summer, Ms. Duca. You're very welcome, Tony. Just a fun fact. I find myself to be all too critical of others on a daily basis. Not proud of this in the least, but I can't be a phony. Well, that's a very interesting fact, Tony, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll be speaking to that after the break. Of course, we want to be honest. As I said before, that's really the point of a difficult conversation, a conscious, difficult conversation. We want to be honest. Now, there are things we can do, ways we can communicate our honesty in a way that isn't using what one of my clients said one time, blunt force trauma to the heart. You know, well, I was just being honest. Now, Tony, I'm not saying you because I have no idea, but just in general, you know, we can easily sort of fall into that where, well, I was just being honest, but it was kind of raw. And in our delivery, we can convey our honest response in a way that allows the person to hear us, or gives the other person the best chance, I'll say that, of hearing us. Okay, so let's go to the break. And when we come back, I'll talk more specifically about what you can do immediately to change the trajectory of this relationship dynamic. You're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? I'm your host, Catherine Duca. Let's take a short break. Stay with me. We'll be right back.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Well, hello there. This is Dr. Sydney Steen. I am the senior minister and spiritual leader of the North Hollywood Church of Religious Science. We are a oneness center for spiritual living. And I just want to invite you to something that I think is really, really special. In October, from the 6th to the 10th, at Unity Village in Lee Summit, Missouri, the affiliated New Thought Network will be hosting the most wonderful retreat. This will serve your soul. It will lift your heart. And oh my goodness, I want to call it an advance. So come hear wonderful speakers like Martha Creek, Sonny Cantrell, and the music will be off the hook with Ricky Byers. There will be so much there to support your soul. I hope that you will join us. You can go to antn.org. That's antn.org. You can get all the information. You can sign up. You can use a credit card, and it is safe and secure, and I hope to see you there. Have a blessed day.
What if the person you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are? What if years of conditioning and surviving in a challenging world have left you clinging to strategies and beliefs that mask your truest nature? I'm Catherine Duca, psychotherapist and self-esteem coach, and you're listening to Who Do You Think You Are? A show that looks beneath our psychological masks and uncovers our profoundly messy, beautiful, brilliant, tender-hearted essence. Join me as we go in search of the hidden power of our true selves. I'm so glad you're here. And welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're talking about one of the more prickly aspects of having a difficult conversation, and that is criticism. How to handle it when it's leveled at you, and what to do when you find yourself being critical of others. Now, mixed in with responding to criticism is just that, the notion of responding rather than reacting to criticism. And I mentioned before the break that responding is, gosh, it's so much better than just knee-jerk reacting, because a response, when you think about it, is more measured, it's less charged, it lends itself energetically to the whole notion of tell me more. When we react to a criticism, whether it's real or whether we perceive that we're being criticized, our reactivity is our attempt to shut down what the person is saying. We shut down, it's sort of a two-parter. We shut down the other person's complaint, and we try to justify our own. So think of it as, a 1-2 punch. I want to stop the person from criticizing because I feel so uncomfortable. They're telling me or implying that I've done something or said something wrong, or I didn't say something or do something they wish I had. And so I'm trying to, stop that in its tracks, all the while trying to, perhaps because I'm in fight or flight, justify my own reaction. and I pile on all the rationalizations and all the justifications. Well, and my voice probably gets, high pitched and chirpy. I know when I get defensive, my shoulders go up and my voice does not sound like this voice that I'm using right now. It sounds kind of chirpy. Someone said to me one time, Kathy, I think you're going to shatter glass with the tone of your voice. So that's how I know, well, among other ways, but that's one of the ways I know that, oh boy, my voice has reached a certain octave. I am in high level defensiveness right now. So let's take a look at what responding looks like in practice in very simple ways. We're going to use the examples I put forth before. So if someone says to you, you never listen to me. You're always distracted, or you're doing something, or looking the other way. I don't know, but you never listen. Instead of saying, yes, I do. What are you talking about? You could say, now try this on, something like, okay, I really want to listen to you. I really want to hear you. So tell me what's important to you. I'm really open to hearing it right now, because you have something that you're telling me that I'm not getting, correct? So I want you to know I really want to hear what you're saying. Can we try that again? All right? The spin on that, the energetic spin, is completely different. You're not putting up a shield or a stop sign. Instead, you're kind of making a U-turn and you're saying, okay, and you're declaring your intention. I want to hear you. Let's take another pass at it. Okay, because you're telling me that I'm not hearing you, and I want to hear what's most important to you right now. So let's go. Let's try it again. I hope you hear the invitation in that, right? Because the person is letting you know that they don't feel heard. The top level criticism that they're leveling is you're not listening. But the underlying feeling and plea is, I feel badly, you're not listening to me, and I really want you or need to feel heard by you right now. So it's a communication on a different level. All right. Another one, if someone says, you're always late, this time, that time, you're always late. I don't know what I'm going to do, with this lateness. You have to stop. You have to stop. I can't stand it. It's inconvenient. Don't you value my time? On and on and on. Okay. Chirpy, top level, ping pong match, shoulders up, conversation going nowhere. Instead, you can say something like, I get it. Being on time matters to you. Next time I'll plan better. Of course, I value your time. Now, what do you think about that? Because I hear that as A, deeper communication, B, I think a more precise communication, and C, pardon me, a communication that conveys to the other person, you're not going in reverse, you are moving toward the person. So asking a question like that or making a statement like that is actually a joining move. And it's a responsive joining move, because a more reactive reaction is putting up a barrier. And the other person, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to put up their own barrier. Now you're relating barrier to barrier, volume up, and you're trying to get something accomplished. It cannot happen. It really can't happen. So what you want to do is build in a certain vibration of communication hospitality, right? That's what I call it. You want to be someone, or I invite you to think about this. being someone who is hospitable to hearing this kind of statement from someone else. Okay? Because be the peace you want to see in the world. Well, if you want to see peace, peace isn't up to the other guy. Peace is up to us, to me, and to you when we open our mouths, when we express ourselves. That's the peace. That's the peace. Because the antithesis of peace is volatility, judgment, accusation, nonstop criticism, making someone feel wrong, making someone feel small. How are we going to inject peace into the world and invite peace when we ourselves conduct ourselves in a manner that is anything but peaceful? I think you see what I'm saying. Let's do one more. Let's see. You're not pulling your weight in this relationship. I do everything. Can't you see that? What are you talking about? I do this, that, and the other. You're in charge of this and I'm in charge of that. I don't know what you're talking about. Or worse, yeah, I've heard this before. There you go again, on and on and on. Okay. If we react in that manner, how much goodwill have we deposited in our account, our goodwill account? Not much. Not much at all. All right. In fact, we've just increased the defensiveness account. All right. So something you might say is, instead of all that, is, okay, it's what I'm hearing you say is you don't feel as though I'm respecting all that you do. Is that right? Do I have that right? Is that how you feel? It's always good to check in. Do I have that right? Am I correct? Instead of piling on and layering up all the justifications, you simply say in as few words as possible. This is the other thing. When we get defensive, we think we have to explain things over and over again. 10 ways to Sunday. We really don't. That overkill actually drowns out our point and makes the other person want to tune us out. And if it were reverse, we would want to tune out also. So it's always good to say in as few words as possible, this is the essence of what I'm hearing you say. In this case, you don't feel as though I'm acknowledging or respecting everything you do. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Finally, you hearing me. Now, you know what? You could follow that up with the deluxe question of, is there more? Or tell me more. Tell me more if you have more to that. Now, this goes against, the knee-jerk reaction, because here in knee-jerk, you can barely tolerate what the other person is saying, right? I read a statistic. We can only tolerate like 8 to 10 seconds of criticism before we want to crawl out of our skin or before we have a snarky comeback or withdraw. That's the other thing I meant to say. We can pounce or we can shut down. Some of us have only 2 speeds for that, right? So it's really, you might find this so radical to say, tell me more. But actually, it goes such a long way to helping the other person feel your intention, which is to really understand them. If your intention, I repeat, if your intention is to win the argument and, live in self-righteousness, well then, you can do that. But that's not going to advance the communication between you. That's not going to bring you closer. That's not going to take a few bricks out of the wall between you. So you can have your satisfaction, but it's really white sugar. If it makes you feel good, that's only going to last a few minutes. And then actually you run the risk of feeling pretty lousy, you know, and it certainly does not invite the other person's, you know, goodwill toward you. I mean, that's just the way it is. So what I hear you saying, not what you said. It's better to say what I hear, because by the time it leaves the other person's mouth and enters your gears of how you hear things, we might not get it right. So rather than be absolute and say what you said was, it's good to hear. It's better to say, what I hear you saying is this. Do I have that correctly? And is there more? And then the person says what they say, or maybe they say, no, there's no more. Then you could say, I'm really going to be more mindful of that going forward. And the cherry on top, if you wish to place it there, is to say, please let me know next time if you think I'm doing it again. I'm really going to watch it, but in case I slip up, and I may, not because I'm not trying, because I promise you I will try, I will be mindful, but because I just might revert, can you let me know? Now, I think the vibration on that is now much more of a collaborative nature than an adversarial one. And I think now you have co-created more of a partnership with the other person. Don't you think? Let me know how that sounds if you happen to be in the chat. Oh, I see we have another person. Janine. Hi, Janine. Good to see you. Janine says, this makes a lot of sense and really works best if you're not super angry. I think it's really important to consider timing. Find a bit of inner peace first and then approach the person later. 100%, Janine. What you're talking about here, and I think you actually brought this up a week or so ago, you're talking about self-regulation. Self-regulation. Yes, if you need to cool down and get hold of yourself before you have the difficult conversation, that's really the best thing to do. Number one. Number two, you can help yourself along with self-regulation by saying, okay, I'm going to put words to it. This may occur in an instant in your mind, but if I slow it down and put a script to it, you might ask yourself, okay, what's my deal around criticism? Because if you're like the person I've mentioned in the past who made lasagna for her family and her father was disgusted by it because she put too much salt, and she made a vow at the age of, I don't know, 10 or 11 or 12, something like that. Oh, I'm never going to make a mistake again if I can help it, because criticism is just too awful. Notice what you're carrying, what unresolved issue you might be carrying around criticism, and go in and help yourself with that. This is how we calm down. We don't, time alone might help, of course, but you can talk yourself through. Oh yeah, I know I'm very prickly around criticism. Okay, but you know what? This person who feels criticized, this person is not my father, or this person who's criticizing me is not my father. So let me make that distinction in my head. He or she or they are not my father. They are who they are. Let me hold them separately and kind of get that straight in my mind. That might help diffuse the charge on, oh my God, this is like the lasagna thing. So if you can do it in advance, collect yourself, ground yourself, and then go back to the conversation. And as I said last time, if you can't do it in the most timely way or in the timing that the other person needs, table it, but always, always, always let the person know your plan is to come back and resume. If you leave the person hanging just so you can be comfortable, you're going to help them become highly anxious in that moment. So you say, if, you know, it depends when the conversation starts, but if you can get your private time, do it, and then say, you know what, I'd love to talk about this. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. Tonight's not the best time. How about we do this tomorrow, afternoon? Or how about we do this over coffee? Or how about I call you up, tomorrow afternoon? You have to let them know you're really coming back. I think that too will do a lot to reassure the person. Now, what if you're caught in a conversation, you're talking about something, and the conversation morphs into this, delicate area where you're unprepared and the person levels a criticism at you or you feel criticized? Well, some of the same things apply. Okay, wait a minute. I want to respond, but you know what? I feel myself becoming a bit defensive here, and I don't want to react that way. Let me take a moment. And you could just, be there and just take literally a moment if that's all you think you need, or you could say, let's revisit this a little later. But I feel myself becoming defensive. Or, you know what? I don't want to become defensive because that'll make it hard to hear what you have to say. Can you put that another way? Because I really want to hear what you're telling me. Can you put that another way? If the person if you feel they're high on their horse, you can say, you know what? It's really hard for me to hear you right now. It feels to me, because you want to speak in I statements, not you. The minute you go, you've lost the person. You've pushed them over the edge into defensiveness, hands down. Much better to say, I feel a little put on the spot right now. I'm going to need a moment. Or, I think there's more to what you're saying. Can you try to tell me that? Or can you tell me in different words so I can hear it better? Because it's a little hard to hear you. It feels to me like you want to be right in this argument. And frankly, I do as well. But how about we both just try to understand one another? And you can kind of shift the vibe on the conversation. Instead of volleying in this angry way, you can shift into genuine interest into what is really causing the person to feel the way they feel and why they said what they said. So, Janine, I hope that helps, because we have to self-regulate, and that's an everyday job. We wake up in the morning, we should check ourselves. Where am I today? How am I feeling? And go in and, be our own therapist, be our own coach as much as we can. All right. I see we have Dawn joining us. Hi, Dawn. Welcome. Sounds so basic to say, but active listening is so key to effective communication. Love the phrase, tell me more. Yes, active listening. I said last week that listening has the bad rap and the inaccurate meaning for many people to be, well, I just have to be quiet until it's my turn to speak. That's passive listening. Active listening, as Dawn is saying, is more interactive. It's more reflective listening, which is what that is called. What I hear you saying is you're reflecting back what you heard. Clarifying questions. If you don't know exactly what the person means, can you clarify something? Or may I ask a clarifying question, because I really want to understand. You said this, that, and the other thing. Do you mean this or that? Or tell me if I'm off base. So questions of reflection and questions of clarification. And is there more? Tell me more. All right. So very important. Gosh, imagine if we were all taught this at a young age, but most of us weren't. I think now schools are becoming more and more aware of the importance of emotional intelligence as well as intellectual intelligence. And this is all part of being emotionally astute, emotionally tuned in, interpersonally aware. So, dear listeners, wide receivers, as we go about our week this week, let's be mindful of how we are coming back to another person's comment. Let's all try to be more responsive, less knee-jerk reactive. Let's be hospitable. Let's be someone people identify as, oh, I can talk to her. I can talk to them. I can talk to him. Yeah. I can pretty much tell them anything. And even if they don't get me, I know they want to. They're a safe person. So let's all try to do that this week. Be someone's safe haven to tell you their honest truth. And when we, in kind, impart honesty, let's do so with directness, but let's try a lighter touch. We can always bring out, the hammer later on. But I submit to you, if we're clear in our communication, we need a hammer maybe much less than we think. All right. So I invite you to try these things this week. Next week, by the way, a couple things. If you want to email me for any reason, do so at Catherine@catherineduca.com. If you're interested in learning more about these concepts, I will be having some workshops coming up in the autumn. I'll tell you about that. If you'd like to read more instantly about these concepts and so much more, you can get my book. It's called Unmasked: Discover the Hidden Power of Your True Self, available on Amazon. And I think it might even be on sale right now. I have nothing to do with the sale price, but by all means, it's a book that I'm pretty partial to. It's a no fluff, no nonsense book, and it's really the heart of my work. So I invite you to get a copy. I will not be here live next week. I will be, the best of will be broadcasted. If you have a particular episode that you liked and you think it would be good for me to rebroadcast that next week, let me know. Drop me a line, Catherine@CatherineDuca.com. I welcome your suggestion. If not, I'll just put something that I really liked talking about up there. And then I'll be back in 2 weeks live, and we will continue how to be a light in this world, how to maintain our connection to source, even through our murky, muddy, fraught personalities, which we all have. Until then, dear listeners, wide receivers, love builders, self-love builders, I wish you well. I wish you a good week. And remember, who you think you are is just a fraction of who you truly are. You are infinitely more magnificent than you imagine. Let's step into that together more and more and more. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I wish you well. Good night.